In this part of the lecture series on machine learning, I'm going to be talking about um, accuracy of the uh, prediction models. So before we talked about data collection and collecting data that we want to use for machine learning. So here I have a bunch of scripts. So here you can see right here, Miami, not from Miami, that's one, weather history. Okay. So part of the problem with machine learning is that you need a fairly large amount of data. And if I were to do, let's say, a prediction of how often flights took off on time, let's say from Miami to, let's say, Europe, um, I need not only the weather data for Miami, but I also need all the flight delay or on time or early information for certain flights leaving out of Miami. So problem with flight data is that not all of it is free, and only certain mostly American carriers put their data on FlightAware, but there's a limited amount of free data you can get. So instead, I'm going to limit myself to publicly available data generated by a public government agency, which is NOAA. And what I've done is I've built a script that will collect all the weather data from 2020 to 2025 for the city of Miami. Now, I just picked Miami because I wanted to just center it based on one city. But if you were to make a prediction model for all flights across the US, then you need weather data for all those cities. But for now, it's just centered on Miami, and I've centralized it from 2020 to 2025. And what this script does, it goes and pulls all the data for Miami, starting from these two date endpoints, and then it puts it into a CSV here. Then after it collects all this data, then I have another script here. So that's weather data. Then I wanted to use that data to then make a prediction model. So here in this script, what it does, it reads all that all that weather data for Miami, and I'm saying, okay, for all that data, the output is the hurricane and then the rain or um, basically rain and hurricane kind of output. But the input is all this weather data from Miami, and it has things like average humidity, wind direction, and so forth, all the way out here. You'll see all these columns here. And what this predict weather is doing is that it's going to be building some data frames in Python and then using linear regression to then build and train a model across all those years. And then it's going to then let me be able to predict what the weather might be any time of the year. So since we have basically 5 years of Miami data, of weather data, you figure it should be the same let's say every January 1st or every March 30th. So after we build all this, we want to then make a way to run a prediction. So be able to input a date, and then so first we train the data, and then we allow the program to then run in a prediction mode, and then it can then given any date, it will then give a prediction of that date. So And as well, now the other thing that I did was run a prediction for every day between 2020 to 2025, and then run a prediction and then actually compare it with the actuals. And then you can actually generate an accuracy report of how accurate the prediction is compared to the actual weather data. And then what I did was then produce a report that can be seen here. And these are the various metrics of the model. For example, mean average error, or R2. These are various types of model measurements. Okay. And after all this is done, so you can see that there are scripts here for running them. So I have built, for example, the instructions here on actually how to run the prediction. And of course, this is all based on UV. So read the first setup that I have about setting up UV with Python. And then after you run all these, the next interesting part is that after you have all this stuff set up, what I did was with Service PI, you can now run this Python program as a RESTful service. So if I run it like this, so now it's running as a RESTful service. And if I open up uh, hold on, I'm going to open up a command prompt. Video 3. And then I run, for example, test predict. And if I look at the way that the script is run for test predict, it sends a date to the server on an endpoint, and then it will send back the output. Let me close this panel. So then here you can see so the input was some date in August, and then it returned some predicted weather data. And the same thing now for the accuracy report. Like that, and it returns through a RESTful endpoint the accuracy of the models. And then to make things interesting, I made a Flutter app that calls this endpoint up here. So this is the Flutter app or mobile app that calls the endpoints, and you can see how this prediction works. So 2029, let's say January 1st. Oops. Submit this, and then you can see that the server, sorry, right here, it got invoked. You can see that the prediction API got called, and you can see how I render the output. And if you look at how, let's see here. This is the raw data from the server, right? Which is my server running locally. Let me call it again. There we go. Oh. Looks like I must have turned off the output. So let's see here, go back over here, predict, and the encoding raw API response. I'm going to say, well, I'm not going to do it there. Debug print the raw API response. So let's see if I do a hot restart of the app. Click on the predict. Let's say 2029, January 1st. Now you can see the raw output right here. Oh, okay, I must have done something. Okay, I'm gonna just take this one right here and do the raw print here instead of here. Do a restart of the hot start of the app. 2029. Now you can see the raw output from the server here that I then render in a more pretty way. That's prediction. This is just for Miami. And then this is the analysis, and just seeing it in a more nicer format than in a JSON format. Okay. So these measurements is measuring the how accurate the models are. I will explain in a future lecture how to analyze these numbers. But for now, things to take away from this is that you want one of the reasons why that we build our a machine learning project this way is that there's going to be a lot of data that you don't want to put into your mobile app, where the amount of data would be probably too much for the mobile app to handle. You want to be able to build these prediction models with these, right here, you can see all these different kinds of libraries that are used for doing the prediction. Scikit-learn and these pandas and these linear models, which are more accessible in Python than in a mobile language. So you build these and the data stays in the server, and then the mobile app is really just making a request for prediction or looking at the just the analysis of the data or the summary of the data rather than the raw amounts of data. Okay. All the source code will be out on the GitHub. You'll see the links in the description. Let me know what you think about this tutorial, and please subscribe and like this video to help support my channel. Okay, thank you.